हेलो एवरीवन, वेलकम टू द लाइव सेशन। तो लास्ट क्लास हम देख रहे थे एनसीईआरटी ज्योग्राफी क्लास 11 का चैप्टर 6। तो इसमें हमने वेदरिंग तक देखा था, उसके बाद का आज हम शुरू करेंगे। तो शुरू करते हैं। मास मूवमेंट्स। दिस मूवमेंट्स ट्रांसफर्स द मास ऑफ रॉक्स डेब्रिज डाउन द स्लोप्स अंडर द डायरेक्ट इन्फ्लुएंस ऑफ ग्रेविटी। दैट मीन्स एयर, वाटर और ice do not carry debris with them from place to place, but on the other hand, the debris may carry with it air, water, or ice. The movements of mass may range from slow to rapid, affecting shallow to deep columns of materials and include creep, flow, slide, and fall. Gravity exerts its force on matter, both bedrock and the products of weathering. So, weathering is not a prerequisite for mass movement. Though it aids mass movements. Mass movements are very active over weathered slopes rather than over unweathered materials. Mass movements are aided by gravity and no geomorphic agents like running water, glaciers, wind waves, and currents participate in the process of mass movements. That means mass movements do not come under erosion, though there is a shift aided by gravity of materials from one place to another. Materials over the slopes have their own resistance to disturbing forces and will yield only when force is greater than the shearing resistance of the materials. Weak unsolidated materials, thinly bedded rocks, faults, steeply dipping beds, vertical cliffs, or steep slope, abundant precipitation and torrential rain, and scarcity of vegetation, etc., favor mass movements. Several activating causes precede mass movements. They are removal of support from below to materials above through natural or artificial means, increase in gradient and height of slopes, overloading through addition of materials naturally or by artificial filling, overloading due to heavy rainfall, saturation and lubrication of slope materials, removal of materials or load from over the original slope surface. Occurrence of earthquakes, explosions or machineries, excessive natural seepage, heavy drawdown of water from lakes, reservoirs and rivers leading to slow outflow of water from under the slopes or river banks, indiscriminate removal of natural vegetation, heave or heaving up of soils due to frost growth and other causes. Flow and slide are the three forms of movements. Figure shows the relationship among different types of mass movements, their relative rates of movements and moisture limits. Landslides. These are relatively rapid and precipitate movements. The materials involved are relatively dry. The size and shape of the detached mass depends on the nature of discontinuities in the rock, the degree of weathering, and the steepness of the slope. Depending upon the type of movement of materials, several types are identified in this category. Slump. Slump is slipping of one or several units of rock debris with a backward rotation and with respect to the slope over which the movement takes place. Rapid rolling or sliding of earth debris without backward rotation of mass is known as debris slide. Debris fall is nearly a free fall of earth debris from a vertical or overhanging face. Sliding of individual rock masses down bedding, joint or fault surfaces is rock slide. Over steep slopes, rock sliding is very fast and destructive. Figure shows landslides scarce over steep slopes. Slides occurs as planar failures along discontinuities like bedding planes the deep steeply. Rockfall is free falling of rock blocks over any steep slope, keeping itself away from the slope. Rock falls occur from the superficial layers of the rock face, an occurrence that distinguishes it from rock slide, which affects materials up to a substantial depth. Between mass wasting and mass movement, which term do you feel is most appropriate? Why? Can solidification be included under rapid flow movements? Why it can be and can't be? In our country, debris, avalanches, and landslides occur very frequently in the Himalayas. There are many reasons for this. 1. The Himalayas are tectonically active. They are mostly made up of sedimentary rocks and unconsolidated and semi-consolidated deposits. The slopes are very steep compared to the Himalayas. The Nilgiris bordering Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, Kerala, and the Western Ghats along the west coast are relatively tectonically stable and are mostly made up of very hard rocks. But still, debris, avalanches, and landslides occur through, though not as frequently as in the Himalayas in these hills. Why? Many slopes are steeper with almost vertical cliffs and escarpments in the western Ghats and Nilgiris. Mechanical weathering due to temperature changes and ranges is pronounced. They receive heavy amounts of rainfall over short periods, so there is almost direct rockfall quite frequently in these places, along with landslides and debris avalanches. Erosion and deposition. Erosion involves acquisition and transportation of rock debris. When massive rocks break into smaller fragments through weathering and any other process, erosional geomorphic agents like running water, groundwater, glaciers, wind, and waves remove and transport it to other places depending upon the dynamics of each of these agents. Abrasion by each debris carried by these geomorphic agents also aids greatly in erosion. By erosion relief degrades, that means the landscape is worn down. That means though weathering aids erosion, it is not a precondition for erosion to take place. Weathering, mass wasting, and erosion are degradational processes. It is erosion that is largely responsible for continuous changes that the Earth's surface is undergoing. As indicated in figure, denudational processes like erosion and transportation are controlled by kinetic energy. The erosion and transportation of Earth material is brought about by wind, running water, glaciers, waves, and groundwater. Of these, the first three agents are controlled by climatic conditions. They represent three states of matter: gaseous wind, liquids, running water, and solid glacier, respectively. The work of the other two agents of erosion, waves, and groundwater is not controlled by climate. In case of waves, it is the location along the interface of litho and hydrosphere coastal region that will determine the work of waves, whereas the work of groundwater is determined more by the lithological character of the region. If the rocks are permeable and soluble and water is available only, then karst topography develops. In the next chapter, we shall be dealing with the landforms produced by each of these agents of erosion. Deposition is a consequence of erosion. The erosional agents lose their velocity and hence energy on gentler slopes, and the materials carried by them start to settle themselves. In other words, deposition is not actually the work of an agent. The coarser materials get deposited first and finer ones later. By deposition, depressions get filled up. The same erosional agents with running water, glaciers, wind, waves, and groundwater act as aggradational or depositional agents also. What happens to the surface of the earth due to erosion and deposition is elaborated In the next chapter on landforms and their evolution, there is a shift of materials in mass movement as well as in erosion from one place to other. So why can't both be treated as one and the same? Can there be appreciable erosion without rocks undergoing weathering? Soil formation. You see plants growing in soil. You play in the ground and come into contact with soil. You touch and feel soil and soil your clothes while playing. Can you describe it? Soil is a dynamic medium in which many chemical, physical, and biological activities go on constantly. Soil is a result of decay. It is also the medium for growth. It is a changing and developing body. It has many characteristics that fluctuate with the seasons. It may be alternatively cold and warm or dry and moist. Biological activity is slowed or stopped if the soil becomes too cold or too dry. Organic matter increases when leaves fall or grasses die. Process of soil formation. Soil formation or pedogenesis depends first on weathering. It is this weathering mental depth of the weather material which is the basic input for soil to form. First, the weathered material or transported deposits are colonized by bacteria and other inferior plant bodies like mosses and lichens. Also, several minor organisms may take shelter within the mantle and deposits. The dead remains of organisms and plants help in humus accumulation. Minor grasses and ferns may grow later. Bushes and trees will start growing through seeds brought in by birds and winds. Plant roots penetrate ground, burrowing animals bring up particles, mass of material becomes porous and sponge-like, with the capacity to retain water and to permit the passage of air, and finally a mature soil, a complex mixture of mineral and organic product forms. Is weathering solely responsible for soil formation? If not, why? Pedology is soil science. A pedologist is a soil scientist. Soil forming factors. Five basic factors control the formation of soil: parent material, topography, climate, biological activity, time. In fact, soil forming factors act in union and affect the action of one another. Parent material. Parent material is a passive control factor in soil formation. Parent material can be any in situ or on site whether rocks, debris, residual soils or transported deposits. Transported soil. Soil formation depends upon the texture, size of debris and structure, disposition of individual grains or particles of debris, as well as the mineral and chemical composition of the rock, debris or deposits. Nature and rate of weathering and depth of weathering mantle are important considerations under parent material. There may be differences in soil over similar bedrock, and dissimilar bedrocks may have similar soils above them. But, but when soils are very young and have not matured, these show strong links with the type of parent rock. Also, in case of some limestone areas where the weathering processes are specific and peculiar, soils will show clear relation with the parent rock. Topography. Topography, like parent material, is another passive control factor. The influence of topography is felt through the amount of exposure of a surface covered by parent materials to sunlight and the amount of surface and subsurface drainage over and through the parent materials. Soil will be thin on steep slopes and thick over flat upland areas. Over gentle slope where erosion is low and percolation of water is good, soil formation is very favorable. Soils over flat areas may develop a thick layer of clay with good accumulation of organic material, giving the soil dark color. Climate. Climate is an important active factor in soil formation. The climate elements involved in soil development are moisture in terms of its intensity, frequency, and duration of precipitation, evaporation and humidity, temperature in terms of seasonal and diurnal variations. Precipitation gives soil its moisture content, which makes the chemical and biological activities possible. Excess of water helps in the downward transportation of soil components through the soil elevation and deposits the same down below elevation in climates like wet equatorial rainy areas with high rainfall. Not only calcium, sodium, magnesium, potassium, etc., but also a major part of silica is removed from the soil. Removal of silica from the soil is known as desilication. In dry climates, because of high temperature, evaporation exceeds precipitation, and hence groundwater is brought up to the surface by capillary action, and in the process the water evaporates, leaving behind salts in the soil. Such salts form into a crust in the soil known as hard pans. In tropical climates and in areas with intermediate precipitation conditions, calcium carbonate nodules conker are formed. Temperature acts in two ways, increasing or reducing chemical and biological activity. Chemical activity is increased in higher temperatures, reduced in cooler temperatures with an exception of carbonation, and stops in freezing condition. That is why tropical soils with high temperatures show deeper profiles, and in the frozen tundra regions, soils contain largely mechanically broken materials. Biological activity. The vegetative cover and organisms that occupy the parent materials from the beginning and also at later stages help in adding organic matter, moisture retention, nitrogen, etc. Dead plants provide humus, the finely divided organic material of the soil. Some organic acids which form during humifications aid in decomposing the minerals of the soil parent materials. Intensity of bacterial activity shows up differences between soils of cold and warm climates. Humus accumulation in cold climates as bacterial growth is low. With undecomposed organic matter because of low bacterial activity, layers of peat develop in subarctic and tundra climates. In humid tropical and equatorial climate, bacterial growth and action is intense and dead vegetation is rapidly oxidized, leaving very low humus content in the soil. Further, bacteria and other soil organisms take gaseous nitrogen from the air and convert it into a chemical form that can be used by plants. This process is known as nitrogen fixation. Rhizobium is a type of bacteria lives in the root nodules of leguminous plants and fixes nitrogen beneficial to the host plant. The influence of large animals like ants, termites, earthworms, rodents, etc. is mechanical, but it is nevertheless important in soil formation as they rework the soil up and down. In case of earthworm, as they feed on soil, the structure and chemistry of the soil that comes out of their body changes. Time. Time is the third important controlling factor in the soil formation. The length of time the soil forming processes operate determines maturation of soil and profile development. A soil becomes mature when all soil forming processes act for a sufficiently long time developing a profile. Soils developing from recently deposited alluvium or glacial till are considered young and they exhibit no horizons or only poorly developed horizons. No specific length of time in absolute terms can be fixed for soil to develop and mature. Is it necessary to separate the process of soil formation and the soil forming control factors? Why are time, topography, and parent material considered as passive control factors in soil formation? तो ये था हमारा 6 नंबर चैप्टर और ये है इसका एक्सरसाइज. आप चाहे तो ये कर सकते हैं और आज के लिए इतना ही. थैंक यू. थैंक्स फॉर ज्वाइनिंग.